Tabrisha to introduce our author. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Whitney, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tabrisha Jones, and I'm the YA librarian at the Pelham Parkway Venice branch. And I am so happy to welcome back, because we've had Kyle before, to welcome back to do an author talk with Kyle Higgins. So many accolades to review, Eisner and Harvey nominated, and New York Times bestselling writer. Thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
So even though Kyle Higgins is well known, we would like to even give a short bio about him. So Kyle Higgins is an Eisner and Harvey nominated #1 New York Times bestselling author, known for his work on DC Comics, Batman titles, as well as his critically acclaimed reinventions of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which I have been going through on Comics Plus, and and I'm absolutely loving. The Morphin Power Rangers from Boom Studios, the Ultraman from Marvel Comics, and his creator-owned series, and my personal favorite, Radiant Black at Image Comics. He's the founder and creative director of Black Market Narrative and the Massiverse. So thank you so much, Kyle, for joining us today.
Of course. I apologize ahead of time here for my my camera situation, but I had some stuff come up today. So this is I'm going to keep it as steady as I can here.
You're here, and that's the important thing. So you're a critically acclaimed writer, but you've had a lot of books that have came out this year. We have Moon Man, One, and Deep Cuts, because I have a copy of Deep Cuts right here.
Yeah.
So for those who have not had a chance to read any of these books that have come out, could you give us a brief synopsis of them? Yes, yay! I finished reading Moon Man over the weekend. It is really, really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Well, I guess I'll start with Moon Man. Moon Man is a sci-fi superhero series that we do at Image Comics. I do the book with Scott Mescudi, also known as Kid Cudi, the two-time Grammy award-winning rapper, fashion designer, actor, producer, kind of the true multi-hyphenate, as you will. And it's a book that we've been doing now for about a year. So volume 1 just came out. It's a monthly comic book that we publish through Image Comics. Volume 1 just came out in comic stores last week, and it'll be in bookstores on December 10th. So I'm not sure when libraries will receive it or it'll be accessible there, but it's a very, very cool book that I like to kind of describe it as, or comp it to, like, it's like Black Miracle Man for the 2020s, where we're introducing power into the world and then exploring how the world changes as a result. And so it was something that was really, personal for Scott. He's been referencing Moon Man in his music for the better part of a decade at this point. So when I don't remember how far into Radiant Black in the Massiverse we were, but when Scott decided, you know what, I've loved comics my whole life. Scud the Disposable Assassin is my, favorite thing growing up, from Rob Schrab. I really want to do this the right way and actually build out a proper comic book and explore what Moon Man would mean and be as an actual superhero. And so with Radiant Black and the other superhero books that I've done in the past, and then our new Massiverse universe, Scott and his president of production, Karina Manischel, reached out asking if it would be something that I'd be interested in having a conversation about and exploring how to kind of properly build this out. And so here we are, several years later at this point. Marco Licati is our incredible artist on it. Colors by Igor Monti, letters by multiple he's won pretty much everything. Hassan Otsmani-Allahu, an amazing letterer in our industry, just won the Eisner this past San Diego Comic-Con for 2024 for Best Letterer. Designed by Michael Basudel, and it's just like a murderer's row of cover artists, variant cover artists on the ongoing series. Everyone from Bill Sienkiewicz, who also did the original cover to Scott's first, or did the cover to Scott's original album, his first album, Man on the Moon, way back in, what, that would be 2010, 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. Through, I mean, Sanford Green and Matt Taylor, who's a big Mondo poster artist, just a really killer collection of talent on this title. So volume 1 is out now. It collects issues 1 through 6. It's well, for book buyers, it's $9.99 only. It's priced very well. I mean, but you can get an even better deal if you check it out from the New York Public Library, is my understanding. So so that's Moon Man.
Yeah, we just put in a ticket for it, so it should be coming soon.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the other books that we were talking about, we just had this come out as well. So this is our title, No One, which is a murder mystery superhero series. It's set in the Massiverse. I describe it as a kind of a true crime superhero experience. And the reason I use the word experience is because it's much more than a comic book. Two of the characters in the book are reporters who are talked into starting a podcast chronicling their investigation into this digital hacktivist who's it's kind of a Batman-esque character, very contemporary, set right now. They're talked into starting a podcast chronicling their investigation into his identity, as well as this accountability killing movement that sparks in the city as a result of these data drops and doxing that no one puts out on these very corrupt politicians. So we actually make that podcast. We made it for every single issue as a scripted audio series, starring Rachel Lee Cook and Patton Oswalt voicing the two reporters, plus Todd Stashwick from Star Trek Picard, Yuri Lowenthal from the Insomniac Spider-Man games, Walter Jones from Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. And the book, the story is intended to be experienced back and forth between reading the issue and then listening to the episode that corresponds. All of the in-universe websites, we made those as well. So you can actually go on No One's site, and if you know the right command prompt, you are able to access it. Spoiler alert, the command prompt is in the show notes of episode 1. It's also in the trade paperback up front. And then all the newspaper articles, we made all those as well. Hired a crime reporter from CNN and the Chicago Tribune, a former crime reporter, Peter Nikias, to consult, who worked with us on all the articles. So it's very much a big kind of ARG, multi-narrative experience. And at the end of it all, we announced at San Diego this year, right as the last issue came out, that the story is continuing by way of a feature film next year that I'll be directing called I Am No One. And it's designed as a true crime documentary. So the documentary, the film, will be kind of in a found footage style. It's being produced by myself, Brian Buccellato, Steven Schneider, who is renowned for producing Paranormal Activity and Insidious, Late Night with the Devil, like very, very well known in this space, as well as ZQ Entertainment and Stuart Manishill. And it's going to be both an adaptation of the comic and the audio series and the websites and everything, as well as a continuation of the story. So again, it all kind of is one big thing. The cool thing about the trade paperback version that's just come out is that we like pulled out all the stops on it and everything is in there. So every episode is in there by way of QR codes, all of the newspaper articles, all of the websites, all of that's been integrated, as well as video. There's something like 30 QR codes in the book, and you don't have to pay anything extra to experience that content. It's part of the actual story. So that's all in No One. And then the book you held up, Deep Cuts, is is very, very close to my heart. This book was about 5 years in the making. I grew up a trumpet player till I was about 25. I played a lot of classical and jazz. I'm a huge jazz nerd. And my best friend in Chicago, who I also grew up playing in jazz bands with, Joe Clark, who now co-writes Radiant Black as well as Moon Man with me. This was the first book Joe and I did together. Joe is a very, very accomplished trumpet player and educator in Chicago, as well as a composer and arranger. And so we had this idea and an opportunity at Image to build out a story that would, for lack of a better descriptor, be an anti-academic look at jazz. We wanted to tell a story about musicians and about side players and about critics. And we wanted to tell a story that spanned generations and hopefully, if we did our jobs right, would recontextualize the idea of success and failure. Looking at the way that something that you create can inspire and influence people far beyond you in generations after you're gone, and the unintended consequences of that. And so each chapter of Deep Cuts is 48 pages long. It takes place in a different decade of American history and jazz. And so we start in 1917 New Orleans and we end in 1977 in Rio de Janeiro in a world tour. And it's this 300 plus page just behemoth that I could not be more proud of. Joe and I were nominated for, well, the whole team, we were nominated for an Eisner this year for Best Anthology. And as I said, that edition just came out a couple months ago. So those are the big ones right now.
And big they are.
Well, I mean, we also have like Radiant Black is we just finished up volume 6. So volume 6 is going to be coming out in the next I believe month or so. And volume 5 came out a few months ago. Volume 5 is what we were nominated for a Harvey for, because it is volume 5 and 6 are the Catalyst War, where we play with timelines and in a very unconventional way, and frankly in a way that no one's ever tried in comics before. So we're doing all that stuff as well.
Wow. So I just finished Deep Cuts last night and it was so good.
What'd you think?
I loved it. I am not a big jazz, like I listen to jazz, but I'm not a big jazz fan. But how you described it, saying like a non-academic way of looking into the history, that's a perfect explanation for it. Because I was like, I learned about jazz, but also dived into the story of the characters as well, and it just gave me more and more. And it took me until the end to see like, oh wait, they all connect. Like the characters here and there, I'm like, oh wait, I remember this character from this short.
Just eat the pizza, Teresa. Just eat the pizza.
I remember you telling me that
at New York,
and I was like, you'll get it when I was like, I'm waiting, Kyle, I'm waiting, and then I saw it. I was like, oh, there we go.
Yep.
I love the full circle of it.
I know Whitney is dying to ask a question about Moon Man, so I will.
Yeah.
Well, it's not just me. This is a team effort, Teresa. But I mean, just to kind of circle back, I loved Moon Man. I thought it was I just love the pacing and the color. I am a sucker for color palettes, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
So it's nice to know that like the artists kind of came in, but we do want to know what it was like working with Scott or Kid Cudi, for those of you who are watching, and how that relationship kind of developed or came to be, the working relationship, obviously. But
I mean, Scott's great. Super, super collaborative. Very authentic is the best way that I could describe him. And everything he does tends to be very personal and comes from a place of authenticity. So I've done books in the past with different celebrities and different prominent people who, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but sometimes they're not interested in making a good comic, or they don't know what that even means, or couldn't necessarily spot what makes for a good comic. And that could not be further from the case with Scott. Like, Scott very much wanted to approach this the right way and build out a comic that was innovative and compelling, like something that really had something to say and was exploring things that may feel familiar to the world outside your window right now in the state of the world that we're living in, but isn't so on the nose that you're getting pulled out by being berated with topical issues or anything like that. Like, it's very allegorical. um well, yeah, I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's allegorical, but it is also very topical, while still being hopefully a rip-roaring superhero read. And when Scott and I first started talking, there's a feeling out process kind of naturally with every creative collaboration. And so it's at this point we've been working together for 3 years, I want to say. I think we started in 2021. So relationship developed kind of from there. And yeah, I mean, we text all the time about Ninja Turtles. So it'll be like 5:30 in the morning, and we'll be sending each other like memes or gifs of Splinter. So it's I mean, you take your inspiration from wherever you can get it. But I would say that it's a true collaboration. And Scott seems quite happy with the book. He's very excited about it and engaged at every turn. And that's the type of creative partnership that excites me as well.
Who's your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Oh, that's a tricky question. So my favorite growing up was Raphael. I think he probably still is, but I also my like I was aware of all the other versions of the Turtles. I love the first movie, like obsessed with the live action first movie from 1990, the Steve Barron film. I think I gravitated towards Raphael because of the cartoon and Rob Paulson's voice. Like, he's very, very snarky. He's the funny one. And then you watch the movie, which is much closer to the original comics, and you realize, like, oh, there's some anger issues going on here. Like, there's more to Raphael than you pick up on in the animated adaptation or the animated series. So as I've gotten older, um, at different points I've identified with different turtles. Like, there's definitely some Donatello in me. I'm not nearly cool enough for Michelangelo. But I also think, like, now as I lead, Black Market and the Massiverse and everything, there are certainly days that I identify with, relate, and empathize and sympathize with Leonardo, just trying to keep these guys in check, because no one appreciates the leader until they are leaderless. So there are certain moments that I feel a kindred spirit there.
I know that's totally unrelated to books, but
No.
as a Raphael person, grew up on Raphael, grew up on the cartoon. I like the weird crossovers, like with Batman and stuff. So
Oh yeah. Yeah,
um,
you know what? That's actually not the Batman. So there are two jobs in comics that two of my closest friends both got that I'm insanely jealous of. There's really only a handful of jobs that I would say I'm jealous of. And then the two at the top of the list are Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, written by James Tynion. And Power Rangers and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles written by Ryan Parrott. And I remember when that last one was coming up, and my editor at Boom at the time, Daphne Plebin, mentioned it. And I was like, there's a Turtles crossover. I have to do that. Can I do that? Can I do? She's like, no, you can't. You're writing the main book. We just did, the Soul of the Dragon graphic novel plus the main book, and trying to juggle both at the same time. You can't do it. You can't do it. I'm like, but I really, really want to. And to this day, as Ryan embarks on his third iteration of the Turtles Power Rangers crossover with Dan Mora, might I add. Oh man, see, I have FOMO just thinking about it. So one day I will. The Turtles are my last, they're my last kind of, I don't know, they're my white whale. Like they're the last property that I would really want to take a swing at, that I haven't been able to do any, thing with yet at this point. And maybe it's for the better, because I'd want it to be the right situation too. And I don't know what that is or what that even means, but one day I'll get my hands on Raphael. Yeah.
I was never a big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fan.
There's still time.
I thought they were weird. I just looked at it. I was like, why are these turtles talking? And maybe because I prefer the Power Rangers, and I was like,
sure.
Power Rangers are better.
Well, I wouldn't say they're better narratively, but maybe conceptually they're easier to relate to. But
yeah,
I think the Turtles, with no disrespect to Power Rangers, the Turtles have had some real bangers over the years, as the kids would say. I'm told. Did I use that right? Is that, my girlfriend is telling me I didn't use that right, that term. But we're gonna go with it. Yeah, I mean, there's been so much great turtle content over the years, and turtle stories. And also, like, keeping the thing that I respect so much about the Turtles is the way that there's a version of the Turtles for every generation, it feels like. And whether it's the original comics, or the Fred Wolf 80s cartoon, or the Steve Barron Golden Harvest films, or the 2003 animated series, or the Rise of the Ninja Turtles, or now we've got the Mutant Mayhem kind of generation. And it's like they're so malleable, and have had so many different interesting interpretations, that as someone who builds his own worlds now, like, that's a real testament to the core of the concept and the characters, that they can not only be interpreted so broadly, but they can also be they're a draw. They're accessible to so many different generations. They're not just a product of their time, and I think that's really something. Those are rare. Those are rare stories and properties that come around.
Okay, you just guilted me.
I highly recommend Tabrisha. Sophie Campbell I love her work on Ninja Turtles, spin on Ninja Turtles. I got into her stuff when she was working. She had like a cool pseudo zombie post-apocalyptic through Tokyo Pop, and I fell in love with her work that way. But highly recommend. You don't have to start there, but Sophie Campbell is such a great artist.
I have to get to Transformers, because the new Image Comics or Skybound Transformers series, that's really, really good. And
it is.
So yeah. I'm just enjoying reliving my childhood.
You and me both.
Yeah. But to now talk about No One, which is hard to choose out of the 3 books that we've read for this program, which is a favorite. But I will have to say No One is my favorite, because I love mysteries, and that true crime mystery genre that is in with No One, that just has me hooked. But what I love about it also is like how you were talking about is like how immersive the
Yeah.
experience is. Like, what made you guys decide, and especially including it in the Masterverse, like what made you decide to make it so immersive, like creating podcasts, creating websites, different stuff? What made you decide that?
Well, part of my inspiration and thinking on the Massiverse in general is about trying to capture some of that feeling of magic that was there for me when I was growing up with superhero stories and media, whether it was the comics or cartoons or the films. And at a certain point as a creator, um, your love for the material that inspired you, your relationship with it can change. And that has been the case for me with regards to superheroes, and especially superheroes that like I'm a huge Batman fan, or I was. I was fortunate enough to work on Batman for 4 or 5 years, and so it changes, how you feel about the character then. I heard someone describe it as like the price of admission to do this is giving up your fandom in some regards. And so when it was about creating a new type of superhero story in a creator-owned space, I felt like, well, just because I don't feel that way about some of the stuff I used to love anymore doesn't mean I can't try to capture that for someone else. And I wanted to do it in a way that was for right now. I'm utilizing the mediums, formats, and tools that are accessible now, and also that people um, utilize in their day-to-day lives, both in real life and in their consumption of fiction. Um, what had really unlocked it for me, though, because originally the core of the book and the mystery started as a book that I was going to do with Tim Sale at DC. It was a Batman project. It was originally called Gordon and Son, and it was about it was Commissioner Gordon and his serial killer son James Jr. solving cold case murders together. And Gordon actually secretly thought these were murders that James committed, and this was his way of getting him to engage and confess. Um, it didn't end up happening for whatever reason at DC, and then a few years later, Tim passed away, and there was something in the core of it, the relationship between Gordon and James Jr. specifically, that always, and what we were going to do in the book, that always kind of just stuck with me. And so after Radiant Black launched and we were building out what was going to become the Massiverse, it clicked for me one day where I was like, that's how you do it. We set it in Pittsburgh because each Massiverse book is set in its own city. And we play to the strengths of the medium and the genre that we're exploring here. And that includes building out this kind of multimedia approach to it to lean into the immersion. The immersion for me is what makes for that kind of magical feeling. And so then it was just a slippery slope because I only kind of know how to do things one way, which is, all out. So it became a 3-year endeavor with Brian Buccellato, my co-creator and partner on this, and Geraldo Borges, our amazing artist and co-creator on the book. It's very, very, very different from what the original Gordon and Son project was going to be, but we did dedicate the first issue to Tim Sale, and all 10 issues of the book are actually laid out in a variation on the 3 panel per page grid that Darwin Cook utilized in New Frontier, which became Tim's all-time favorite way of making comics. So if you look at Tim's work over the years, like you can see him pivot into that kind of that format. And for him, and he and I had many conversations about this, that was like the truest, like best way to, in his opinion, convey a story in sequentials. And so we thought it would be a nice nod to design the entire book in that format, all 10 issues. So
Just talking about it, just makes me love it even more. It's like I've never read a comic book like this or a series like that. It just also has a great story, and then it has something even more that I could look up afterwards, and an experience after I close the issue. And it's very rare that you see a lot of comics out there like that. Would
Yeah.
would you ever consider doing this again for a new superhero into the Massiverse, or for anything else? Or do you think this was 3 years was enough and you're like, a bit more?
Well, talk to me after we make the movie, because I'm currently, Brian and I are writing the script right now. And Brian's very knee deep in it at the moment. So we're trying, there's a lot still going on with it. So the idea of doing it again, I don't know if you saw me shudder a little bit when you said that, but the idea of doing it again for something else is definitely, I need a little bit more time. But because we also wrote the entire scripted audio series ourselves, and I directed the whole thing, and all the sessions, and produced it, and we handle editorial as well, and it's a lot. Would definitely be open to it on something else or for another superhero. I think the key, though, well, I know the key is, for me, it's all the kind of outside the box stuff we do in the Massiverse, whether it's the secret animated short films for Radiant Black that are through QR codes in the book, or we've done a lot. The courting fold out issues of 4 timelines all at once for Radiant Yellow. Those things only work, in my opinion, when they are kind of integral to the DNA of the story. It's not about doing it as a gimmick. It's about it feeling like a natural extension of the subject matter and the themes and what we're looking to explore. So it would have to be the right fit. It would have to be the right character and the right property where it's like, oh, this makes sense to try to do, X, Y, or Z outside the box with. I will say, though, that we announced at C2E2 last year that we are going to be doing some audiobooks, and Radiant Black is going to be our first one. So we are doing a full audiobook version of Volume 1 with a full voice cast. Voice cast is made up of currently Will Friedle and Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World, voicing Marshall and Nathan. We have Troy Baker voicing Shift, and Yatko from Jujutsu Kaisen voicing Radiant Red, Melissa Navia from Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Wait, is it Strange New Worlds? I think it's Strange New Worlds. I'm not as up on Star Trek as I should be. I believe that's am I mixing up the title? Anyway, Melissa Navia is voicing Eva, Radiant Pink. Lauren Lester from Batman the Animated Series, he's also the voice of No One. He'll be voicing Mr. Burnett, and Kim Rhodes from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and Supernatural. She'll be voicing Mrs. Burnett. And we have some other big ones that we haven't announced yet that will be joining us as well. We were trying to get the audiobook out for around this time this year, and it's taking longer. So it'll be for next year. But again, something that is in a different medium. It's in the audio space. It's not a tie-in podcast, but it is something that it's a different way of experiencing the story, and it's also something that hopefully can reach some new audiences and raise some general awareness about the book and the Massiverse and things like that.
So when you first introduced this series, anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge anime nerd. So you had me at Yuri Lowenthal.
Oh yeah.
For those of you who are watching it now but may watch it later, Yuri Lowenthal is the a dub voice for Sasuke from Naruto, but he also is the teen voice of Ben Tennyson for those
Yep.
Bruce Timm fans. So this is just a fantastic group of names that both to region we're not podcast people so much, but this is it's edge of my seat waiting for this audiobook because I need it. It's just
and Yuri, I'm sure Yuri will be involved on the Radiant Black one as well.
less.
I can't say who just yet, but we did also announce Josh Keaton will be joining us on the audiobook. Speaking of Spider-Man and anime voices. And I don't know if I feel like we've announced, I don't know if we announced, I got to be careful who I say here because I can't remember if we've announced them or not, but yes, we have a number of very talented anime voice actors who will be joining that you'll recognize. I'm very, very close with Johnny Young Bosch, for example, which would be I'm not saying anything there. I'm just saying Johnny and I are very close and have worked together before and would love to work together again. So we'll see what that means and what happens here.
Oh my god, Johnny Young Bosch is I have, well, obviously huge Power Ranger fan.
Yeah,
grew up with him as the Black Ranger, but
yeah,
I also followed his band I Shine, and I still if that's still like a thing, fantastic. So I'm already on board. You do not have to sell me on anything else anymore. I'm there.
Deal.
Like, if you want us to market it, I will fly. You won't need my help marketing, whatever. But
I need all the help marketing I can get. I need all that. Well, I appreciate that because I need all the help marketing we can get. I don't know if you've taken a look at what the landscape is like right now for media. It's very tough to cut through the noise and really kind of find your footing in a sustainable way. So, and honestly, that's why I love doing talks like these, because the whole goal is to reach new potential readers and listeners in the case of the audiobooks, but raising general awareness around the stuff we're doing is integral because it's a creator-owned universe and creator-owned line, and pretty much everything we do at Black Market Narrative is creator-owned, and that means that we don't have, you don't have the resources of established, IP and companies like Warner Brothers and Batman and things like that. And so the more we can get the word out on how cool the stuff we're doing is, the better.
I think the voice actors that you're using, and obviously, and like future actors for your, really leans into nostalgia.
Yeah.
Because we have, as you mentioned earlier, like Will Friedle, Terry McGinnis, Ron Stoppable, obviously Eric from Boy Meets World. And I think we're in an era right now of just general nostalgia. Plus, like, Radiant Black is amazing. Deep Cut, haven't started it yet, sorry, but I'm sure that's great. I trust Tabrisha's opinion.
It's really good because it's like Kyle said, just eat the pizza. It's like you're just enjoying jazz and you're embarking onto this journey. And what I really love is like the different illustrations for each story. And I wanted to ask, like, so for you and Joe, did you guys decide to, like, how did you come to decide, like, instead of like having just one story, like throughout the book, and have like a different story for each chapter?
Right.
And also, did you have a say in like how because there are a variety of different illustrators you use, like how did you know like which illustrator to go to with story? Because it's just like, it's very fascinating how this like all compiled together.
Yeah. Well, that was the plan from the jump, was that each chapter was going to be set in a different decade and feature different characters from prior chapters. and then they would kind of, in some cases, all circle back around in different ways, because music very much is a tapestry. And as I said up top, what you put out into the world and the way that it affects other people and inspires them. Sometimes, as an author, for example, like I'm not aware of that. You're kind of in your own lane and in your own space. Um, but so we wanted each chapter to be a singular story. We wanted it to be narratively satisfying unto itself. And um, it was actually Eric Stevenson's idea that we make each chapter 48 pages and we put it out as a prestige format, um, perfect bound, edition. Um, Originally, we were talking about one artist drawing the entire series, but the reality is, like, it's a massive commitment to draw 320 some pages of story. So the idea of breaking it up and finding artists who best fit, or are the most interesting fits for the particular issues and eras that we cast them for, was the next kind of approach. And then we have one colorist, Igor Monti, who ends up unifying everything while also playing the strengths of each individual artist. And then, so as far as having say in the artists, like, yeah, I mean, I cast the whole book. Like, those are it's something I love to do on all my titles, and I've been doing comics for, I don't know, 14 or 15 years at this point. Full time, and so I've got kind of a deep Rolodex, and I do a lot of conventions and meet a lot of new artists. And um so yeah, finding the right artists who would make it for an interesting fit for each era was actually, honestly, my favorite part of the project.
Definitely can see that, because yeah, Kieran said it perfectly. It's like,
Yeah,
really is a passion project, and I can see
yeah.
that it was a passion project for you and Joe. So we did want to ask,
Mhm.
because you did say that you were a former trumpeter. Who's your favorite jazz musicians? Because maybe I want to try to get into jazz, and
Oh,
so
sure.
we'll look into it.
Oh man, that's a tough question. I mean, I like to, it's similar to my answer about, like, who's your favorite movie or favorite movies. Like, I always ask people, like, give me your four of your favorite movies, your top four favorite movies, like, today, with the caveat that it can change tomorrow. Cause I think there's recency bias, there's feelings that go into it, there's mood, there's also just not remembering certain things. So with that caveat, I'll say, with regards to jazz, well, I mean, I'm okay, so I'm a huge Lee Morgan fan. Um, so anything with Lee Morgan. Um, Dexter Gordon. He has one of my all-time favorite albums, called Go. Highly recommend. Of course, Miles Davis, but Miles is kind of his own thing. Like, Miles is so unique in the best way possible throughout different eras. And um, Clifford Brown. I'm a really big Clifford Brown fan. Clifford Brown, we don't have very many recordings of Clifford Brown, or very many albums. Unfortunately, Clifford Brown died in a car accident, I believe, between Kansas City and Chicago. I might have that wrong. Clifford was like, I mean, he was a savant. I mean, he was this incredible prodigy. And most of the recordings we have of him, I mean, he died when he was 25, so very, very young. And I learned this from Joe, actually. Joe told me that most of the recordings we have of Clifford Brown are from when, so he broke his hand, that he, his valve hand, which is even more remarkable when you hear his dexterity and technical ability doing it with a hand that's not even close to, like, um, I guess, full strength. Um, let's see, different. I mean, of course, there's guys like John Coltrane. I mean, I guess it kind of just depends on what vibe or what kind of mood you're going for. Like, do you like bebop? Do you like small groups? Do you like big band? Do you like swing? Uh, Count Basie? You know what? You know what you should do? Start with Duke Ellington and just go. Listen to Duke Ellington, uh, and then start looking at some of the side players that played in Duke Ellington's bands, and then explore their kind of catalog and trajectory. And at a certain point, as we say in the book, no one really pontificates when talking about pizza with like, hey, I should try that someday. Like, I've heard great things. No, they just eat the pizza. Just with jazz, just dive in. Like, just eat the pizza, and you're gonna listen to some stuff. And if you don't like it, listen to some other stuff. But I do think it's again, this was a Joe idea. Like, you can take any of the people I just mentioned, you could listen to, and then go off on this whole rabbit hole experience of the different players on that album or within that group, and what they then did in their careers after that. Herbie Hancock playing with Miles Davis, and then Herbie goes off and is obviously he's one of our greatest musicians of all time, much less one of our greatest living musicians. Tony Williams, Stan Getz, yeah. So it just depends on flavor, I guess. But I'd say dive into some Duke Ellington.
You just listed off my grandfather, huge jazz person. I think he
Yeah.
liked Fats Domino in particular.
Oh, Fats is great. Yeah.
May my grandfather rest in peace. I mean, they're both passed away. But so just you listed off like his entire record collection.
He had great taste.
He had excellent taste, and I miss him every day. But we have time for kind of a question and a half. So we've been talking a lot about your books and your creations, but we want to know in your busy schedule, what have you been reading, and what would you like to recommend to our audience?
The book I love the most, it's a couple years old right now. If anyone who has not read Stray Dogs, I highly recommend going out and picking up a copy of Stray Dogs. If it's like an 80s Don Bluth animated film with a little bit more of a sinister edge, and it's I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it. I see you both nodding, so you know what I'm talking about. But it's a title at Image Comics, been a huge success there for Image, as well as for Tony Fleece and Trish Forstner, the creators. Trish actually trained under Don Bluth, so when you look at the artwork, it's all drawn in that kind of Disney-esque Don Bluth animation style, and the characters in it are anthropomorphic dogs dealing with. I can't spoil it because the hook at the end of issue 1 is so good that I just recommend everyone pick it up.
Yes. We are obsessed with that book. We did do an event with both of them about
We did.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. It was like the first one. Like
one of our first ones.
Yeah. And they have Feral, which I've been dying to. I wanted to read your stuff first, and now I'm going to jump into Feral because I've just been so highly interested in Feral. Okay, so I guess you're out of time, unfortunately. This has been a wonderful conversation, Kyle. It's always great talking with you. You have
thank you.
So we do have one last question for you. So as librarians, we do something what is called a book talk. It's like a short commercial pitch for a book that's in our collection, so we can encourage our patrons to go and check them out. So we're going to turn the tables onto you. And even though, why don't we do deep cuts since that's in our collection? So if you could do like a quick commercial pitch for deep cuts, So for those who are watching now or going to be watching this recording later on, they can go and check out the book in our collection. So whenever you're ready, you can go ahead.
So should I like introduce myself or anything, or how do I? So
Yeah.
I just say like, hey, I'm Kyle Higgins, and this is and I want to tell you today about my our series Deep. Okay, all right. Hey, I'm Kyle Higgins, co-writer and co-creator of Deep Cuts, a 6-issue epic. Let me try that again. Hey, I'm Kyle Higgins, co-writer and co-creator of Deep Cuts, a graphic novel published by Image Comics that spans 60 years of American history and jazz. It's a very non-academic look at one of my favorite art forms that hopefully recontextualizes the idea of success and failure as we follow these disparate group of musicians across 60 years, different decades, in American music and jazz. And we look at some of these side players who influence future generations unexpectedly by way of their creations. So if you haven't checked this out yet, now's a great time. The trade paperback has come out from Image. We were nominated for an Eisner Award this year for Best Anthology. We're working with 6 of the best illustrators in comics. Danilo Beirut, Diego Greco, Helena Macelis, Ramon K. Perez, Juni Ba, and Toby Cypress to tell a story that hopefully is as heartfelt and it's as heartfelt and hopefully it's just heartfelt. That's really what we were setting out to do. So please feel free to cut that up because that was not yeah.
It was perfect.
That's perfect. That was great.
Believe me, it was a lot more, not in a bad way. It was a lot more commercial than like other authors. So I think it'll be not in a bad way. It was just very polished and put together, and it was fantastic.
James Tinian only just showed the book. You said, "You see this? Just go out and read it," and he was done.
It was very, very simple on his end.
Love it.
We do have stay with us for a couple more minutes, folks, and we do want to go through our final spiel, but thank you so much, Kyle.
My pleasure.
So yes, you heard Kyle do such a wonderful job. We do have Deep Cuts by Kyle Higgins and Joe Clark. It is a great book. If you would like to hear to get it in our collection, we have it here. But also, even though we did talk about it, we have Moon Man and I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. We have Moon Man and No One on. You can go to the next slide, Whitney. What? Yep, there you go. So yes, like I said, Moon Man and No One is on order. So just keep a lookout on it. But we do have more books by Kyle in our collection. We do have the amazing Massiverse series, starting with the Radiant Black. And of course, we have the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Most of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are on Comics Plus. So like we talked about it in our program, you need your library card to access Comics Plus. You can go to the next